Class is now in session. I am Professor Hockey, and today we'll be discussing the game between the Sharks and the Oilers, in which the Sharks managed to win 7-4. Now, this was a nice bit of revenge after the Sharks against the Oilers in their first meeting ended up losing that one in overtime 4-3. So now they leave the Oilers with 0 points. They get the 2 points for themselves, and they continue to help themselves in this tough, or what ended up being, I guess, a rather tough Pacific Division standings. The Sharks have seemingly turned a corner in this season at this point. I mean, they had that mini 3-game losing streak. It did still involve a couple of points due to overtime losses, and the Sharks just seem to be playing in and out better hockey. There's really nobody on this team who I could have pointed to have not played that well. If we look at down the goals, Donskoy scores, Hurdle scores, both in the first period, which was mostly dominated by the San Jose Sharks. I thought the first few minutes of this game, the Oilers had the advantage because of a few Sharks misplays, and then they end up getting that first goal, which I will get to definitely later. But after that, the Sharks dominated most of the first period. They dominated the majority of the second period. Couture and Erik Karlsson scored there. The third period, they seemed to dominate the majority of that one as well. Logan Couture got shorthanded goal. Melker Karlsson got a couple of ones. And while the Oilers put in 3 in that third period, I thought it was mostly because the Sharks were making some very unnecessary risks, taking a lot of aggressive sort of pinches. Multiple times, like Brent Burns and other players even were making these aggressive pinches that you would only see normally when a team is up, let's say, by a goal, or is down by a goal, I mean. But for some reason, the Sharks were doing this when they were up by like 4 goals, sometimes even 5 goals. And so the Oilers got some great opportunities that they managed to score on. So it was somewhat disappointing to see the Sharks do that. But it's still probably one of the better games of the season for the San Jose Sharks. And I thought, as I said, every single player seemed to be playing very well. LeBanc, Goodrow, and Karlsson, that fourth line, they were doing very, very well. It could be argued they were the best line. You could also argue Kane, Hurdle, and Donskoy, a line that was technically put together as the LeBanc and Donskoy spots were swapped. But this third line that wasn't that good the previous night against the Ducks was fantastic tonight. Thornton, Sorensen, and Pavelski were solid. Radil, Couture, and Meyer. I thought Radil actually looked a lot better in this game. Still don't know if it's a permanent solution, but he was also solid. So just in general, most of the Sharks had a good game. Brent Burns had an odd one, I would say, just because I thought he made a couple of really bad plays, especially early on in that first period, but still was solid offensively and everything like that, so not that bad. The first thing I'd like to talk about is Martin Jones. He was supposed to have a very good stat line in this game, right? It could have very easily ended 7-1, maybe 7-2 if that McDavid second goal, which was very, very well played by him to be so mindful of keeping his stick below the crossbar. If that even still goes in, Jones would still have some pretty solid stats, but in the end, his stat line takes a hit in this one, even though he was pretty solid, just because of those Sharks' unnecessary risks. But it was still a decent game for Martin Jones, who's beginning to provide some solid goaltending for the San Jose Sharks in this past few starts. A couple still soft goals in this game, and the Chicago one, the game where he got pulled, does stand out a bit. But I think Jones has, as well as the Sharks, as I said, turned a corner in this season. Next, of course, has to be Erik Karlsson, the one player on the San Jose Sharks who stand up. As I said, a lot of them had some great games. LeBanc and Melker Karlsson, Evander Kane I thought was good, Tomas Hurdle. But if there's one Shark that's standing out in this one, it is Erik Karlsson. He had an insane game. He had an 8-game point streak going prior to his suspension. He missed the game against the Coyotes right before Christmas. He missed the game right after Christmas against the Ducks. But he picks up where he left off. He gets 4 points tonight, a goal, 3 assists, and a +5. And Erik Karlsson just had an insane game. He's really playing at his top level. I wasn't sure, earlier on in the season if he could actually get back to that top level with the San Jose Sharks that he sometimes showed on the Ottawa Senators, that we had seen, let's say, in the playoffs that year that the Senators made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. But Erik Karlsson has just been so good. This was the cherry on top. He was amazing in this game. There was a misplay on Caleb Jones's goal, which of course was his first NHL goal, but still I can overlook that misplay with the amount of positive impact he had on the ice for the San Jose Sharks, and he's just showing himself to be probably the best player on this team at the moment, even better than a player like Brent Burns, who seemingly still held those reins for maybe the first dozen or couple dozen games of this season. Finally, I will talk about the Oilers' first goal, as I said I would. It's weird in a game that the Sharks were actually pretty good in for the majority of it that I'm going to end this review with a bit of a rant, a bit of an angry rant, but it was just goal interference calls. Offside calls, when they call those off, those are mostly gray area type of goals. They can be so close, they can be interpreted in different ways. So while they do upset me, I can normally, within a few minutes of that game, look past them because, maybe sometimes I feel like they're bad calls, but they can be interpreted, as I said, in different ways. And so let me just outline here, because I felt as though this was, in my many years of watching NHL hockey, the worst call in terms of goal, I guess, the worst call I have ever seen at this NHL level. So for those of you who may not have seen it, it starts off Ty Ratty, who manages to get by Justin Braun. I'm not sure what Justin Braun is doing here, but Ratty takes this shot, it hits off the post, and it's rolling across the goal line. So Martin Jones swipes it across the goal line, but not before the goal horn goes off, and most importantly, the referee signals it to be a goal. Right? That is a universal sign for your team to stop playing because it's ruled to be a goal. And so the Sharks obviously stop playing. At that point, Connor McDavid, like a second and a half later, he skates up, he puts the puck in the net. I really didn't pay much attention to that at the time. But then a review starts because the Sharks start to argue with the referee that this puck never crossed the goal line. And so they start to review it. Some angles show that it did cross, or it looks like it did cross. Some angles show it looks like it didn't cross. And after a decently lengthy review, they end up calling it a good goal. And the broadcast shows sort of the picture of what they said or what they used to define this to be a good goal. At this point, it was still Ty Ratty's goal. And while it looked like it didn't actually fully cross the goal line, again, I wasn't really that upset about it. It was so close. It was called a good goal on the ice. Whatever, I can move past that. The Sharks end up tying it up within 16 seconds. And so that definitely made it a lot easier to digest. However, a few minutes later, they end up changing this goal from Ty Ratty's to Connor McDavid because they give out an announcement, like normally when there's a review, the NHL will make some sort of press release or whatever saying why it was a good goal. And they say that while Ty Ratty's shot was inconclusive for having passed the goal line, Connor McDavid, a second and a half later or whatever, puts the live puck in. That's apparently somehow a live puck. And if it was just the goal horn that went off, I wouldn't be that mad about it. The goal horn, it's an arena guy. I don't know if he's an NHL official. Even if he is, he's not really on the ice. He doesn't necessarily have the best views of it. And so you sometimes see sometimes throughout the season, the goal horn goes off, even though it's not a goal. And so if the Sharks had stopped playing because it was the goal horn, that's when I would blame the San Jose Sharks. But the fact that the referee gives the good goal sign, that is a sign, as I said, to stop playing. You don't see, let's say, imagine a situation where the Sharks come in 2-on-1, they take the shot and the referee signals a goal and the goal horn goes off, but it hits off the back post, comes right back out to, let's say, Connor McDavid, and he goes the other way for a breakaway. You don't see that because if the referee is signaling it to be a good goal, that is the end of play. That is sort of like the signal for the end of play. And I don't even care if there's some sort of niche rule in the NHL massive rule book, let's say rule 85.13- 6 article BY index Z that tells me that this is somehow a clean goal. In the spirit of the game, if the referee is signaling it to be a good goal and then you somehow try and pin it on the San Jose Sharks who stopped playing, obviously that they should have still be in it until the whistle or something, because it's impossible to hear a whistle with the massive goal horn going off. But it's just so disgraceful that the NHL end up calling this a goal after the referee makes such a massive mistake just because, the referee got it wrong, but you should still be playing. I don't know why you should still be playing. So it just seems like such a terrible call. As I said, the worst call I've ever seen. And even though the Sharks end up winning this game, as I said, 7-4, this is probably the game that has left me the most upset out of any game that the Sharks have played this season. Even big losses like a 6-0 loss to the Vegas Golden Knights, that one left me saddened, left me upset, but this one leaves me angry. This one leaves me very angry that a call like this can end up happening in an NHL game. As I said, disgraceful. But that the Sharks still get the 2 points, so maybe I shouldn't be that upset. The Sharks will be back in action on Monday against the Calgary Flames, the first place team. I still believe they are the first place team in the Pacific Division, so a very key game. The Sharks have beaten them once this season in a very good game by Martin Jones. They're going to need another solid performance from him to take the win versus this Calgary Flames team that has been basically on fire for the past, I guess, maybe month or so. Class dismissed.